F-freaking-Zero. Highly regarded as one of the greatest racing franchises of all time, the F-Zero series has one of the largest cult followings than any other racing game. Known for its high-speed action, awesome soundtracks, and just an overall love for 80s style anime, it's pretty obvious why F-Zero is one of the most important gaming franchises that Nintendo has ever released. While it's true that most fanbases can often disagree on which game in their respective series is the best out of all of them, I think I and every other F-Zero fan can all agree on one thing about this franchise. F-Zero's been dead for 15 years. Yeah, quite infamously, there has not been an F-Zero game in 15 years. The last entry came out in October 2004 for the Game Boy Advance, and only in Japan too. It's quite a shame, because F-Zero has such a huge fanbase that's been begging for a new game to be made for over a decade. It's one of the more sadder and also confusing moments in the gaming industry. Why isn't there a new F-Zero game? Why did the Wii, Wii U, and so far the Switch miss out on a new installment, along with the DS and 3DS? Well, I figured I'd do a little retrospective video on the whole franchise where I look at each game in the series, along with some extra stuff. Mainly Smash Brothers, obviously. So let's see what the series is all about. Let's look at F-Zero. I'm actually a relatively newer fan to F-Zero, but I'm not too much of a hardcore one. The first time I ever heard about anything F-Zero related was, unsurprisingly, Super Smash Bros. On the N64. Yeah, my cousins and I were playing through the campaign over and over again, then suddenly we got to unlock this random character named Captain Falcon, and we were like, whoa, who? It wasn't until later that I found out he had his own series, but I never really got a chance to play any of the games until the Virtual Console era on the Wii U of all places, mainly because the Wii shop on the Wii is dead. Rest in peace. I also never bought any of the F-Zero games whenever they were on the Wii Shop channel. Anyways, I know who Captain Falcon is, and I know what the F-Zero franchise is like now. So, let's start our futuristic gaming journey with the first entry on our list, which is Mach Rider on the NES. Please wait, this will make more sense in just a bit. Mach Rider is a racing game where it takes place in the year 2112, where Earth has been invaded by an evil force called Quad Runners. So you control the Mach Rider, who drives down long roads while avoiding obstacles and enemy vehicles. This is kind of a standard NES game. The 3D graphics for 1985 must have been pretty impressive stuff back then. Nowadays, the game doesn't hold up too great. It's not a bad game, but it's just very simple, and it also has that strictly hard difficulty spike that could probably scare away new players. It's definitely one of the most arcadey NES games out there. So for its time, yeah, it makes sense why it's designed this way. One thing that throws me off are the 4 different gear options, which I discovered by complete accident. You can shift gears by pressing up and down, and it can increase your bike's speed, which just makes it more difficult in my opinion. For $5, it's not a terrible purchase, but its age definitely shows in a lot of areas. It's available on the Wii U eShop, if anyone still has a Wii U and plays it, that is. Poor Wii U. Such a short lifespan, but I hope one day people will cherish your eShop and Virtual Console while it's all still here. Okay, you're probably wondering, what does this have to do with F-Zero? Well, I mean, just by looking at this game, you can already sorta see the resemblance. The 3D graphics, the futuristic setting, the fast-paced gameplay, Mach Rider is clearly the original inspiration for F-Zero. So it's a pretty important game to mention in F-Zero's overall history, making the series a somewhat spiritual successor to Mach Rider. Aside from being part of Nintendo's Versus arcade series, Mach Rider never got an actual sequel, though like I mentioned, it did lead to something even greater. Elements and ideas from Mach Rider would later be used for the launching point of a new gaming franchise and home video game console. The 90s were rolling around, and Nintendo was getting ready for it pretty quickly. The SNES, or Super Nintendo, would see a release in Japan in November 1990, and in America in August 1991. Nintendo really wanted to have a launch title for their new console that really showed off the scope and power of its hardware. Specifically its Mode 7 capabilities. A mode in the SNES's graphics that could create 3D-like visuals and scaling details. So Nintendo decided to launch the SNES with a game that truly showed its capabilities from the start. That game was F-Zero. Now we're talking. Amazing how the first entry in a new Nintendo series ended up being a launch title of all things. God, I miss this risk-taking Nintendo. F-Zero doesn't really have a plot. You're just racing. Yeah, very straightforward and to the point. You can play up to 4 racers and race on 15 tracks. all of which are split up into 3 leagues, or cups as we know it now. We got the obviously iconic tracks like Mute City and Big Blue, but there's also some that I wish got more representation like Port Town, Whiteland, and even Firefield, the last track in the game. The gameplay of F-Zero is incredibly fun. This isn't like Mario Kart where you've got items and shit. No, it's just you and your speed against other racers. I love that simplicity. You accelerate by using B, and you turn using the D-pad. One technique I love using are the L and R buttons for sharp turns. It actually works really well, so I recommend using them. After you complete one lap, you can use a boost given to you by pressing A. You can hold up to 3 boosts at a time, and there are also 5 laps, which I'm not too crazy about. I don't know, I feel like the standard 3-lap structure would have worked a little better. I would have at least liked the option. Though, whenever you are incredibly involved with a race, you can sometimes find yourself not even paying attention to which lap you're even on. So when a race ends, you're probably gonna be like, whoa, holy crap, the race is over? One complaint I have about the HUD is that we can't see how many laps we have left while racing. You can only see the number every time you make a lap, which I feel was a weird oversight. Then again, this was one of the first racing games of its kind, but I still find it a little weird how it doesn't tell you which lap you're on too easily. You also can't look behind you, but then again, I don't think that's a fair complaint since this was a launch title for the SNES. So obviously that technically wasn't even possible yet. Whatever though, I complained, but these issues don't really ruin the gameplay at all. The graphics look really damn good for an early SNES game. It's impressive how good they got this game to look. It's pretty insane that this game got made in a time where the advanced Super Effects chips didn't exist yet. The soundtrack is also insanely good. I just love them old school SNES instruments going at it. It's a lot of fun. Mute City and Big Blue are the ones most people remember, but I'd honestly recommend checking out Port Town's theme because it sounds amazingly cool. The rest of the soundtrack is great too, but Port Town really stuck out to me for whatever reason. One soundtrack album I recommend checking out is the arranged F-Zero Jazz album that got released around 1992. It has jazz-oriented remixes of the game's soundtrack, which sounds so good. Someone uploaded it on YouTube, so I'll leave a link to that in the description because god damn do these remixes sound good. Obviously, the more you play through the races, the harder they'll get. One pretty unique thing about this game is that you have a health bar, and when it runs out, obviously you'll die. You can refill your health bar by passing over these healing pads placed in certain spots and levels. You also have 5 lives to spare, and earning 10,000 points during a race can actually get you an extra life, which is cool. This is all fine and good, but is this game perfect? No. It's the first of its kind and every game has issues, and this game isn't oblivious to that. For starters, trying to get an early start in races. I have no idea how it works. You gotta time it just right, but almost every time I always screw it up and the game forces me to slow down for a bit, making other racers pass me up. That's so annoying. Also, while there are a decent amount of racetracks, a lot of them end up repeating. Now, every racetrack has unique structures to them, but is no one else bothered by the fact that there's 3 Mute Cities in this game, and no other racetrack has 3 iterations? I don't know, I just found that a little weird. Also, when you first played the game, who had difficulties with Whiteland 2's jump? You all know what jump I'm talking about. I got so frustrated at this part so many times. It turns out that whenever you hit a jump, you have to be pressing down on the D-pad so you could land farther. The problem here is that the game never tells you this. I had to go look up a playthrough online and look at the comments to figure this out. God damn it. There is a practice mode that you can unlock really easily, but it's incredibly basic and only gives you access to 7 of the 15 courses. Why? Plus, with there only being 15 courses, the game can be kinda short. You can beat the whole thing in just under an hour if you're good enough. You have the option to choose 3 different difficulties and, okay, I'll admit, I played every track on the beginner difficulty. I know, I'm a scrub, and hardcore F-Zero fans are facepalming super hard right now, but it was the only way I could have fun playing this game, okay? Leave me alone. One thing I really don't like is that with each lap, ranks get decreased, which means you have to place at least 3rd in a race, otherwise you're gonna automatically lose. That can be really irritating. I never got stuck by it, but it can most definitely be really unfair to new players. This has nothing to do with anything, but one track in the game is called Sand Ocean, and the Sonic fan inside me can't stop making the connection to SA2. Please send help. Why is it that when you want to quit a race, it mocks you by saying you want to give up? Like, geez, game. I just want to restart the league, you don't have to make me feel bad about it. Also, and this is a pretty obvious complaint, this game doesn't have a multiplayer option. Why not? Did it get cut out last minute, or did they not have the capabilities to do it at the time? Such an odd, glaring issue that this game doesn't include multiplayer. One last thing that bothers me, whenever you get further ahead in a race, you can lap other racers who are far behind in last place. This is funny at first, but you can sometimes collide with them. This will either kill you or cause you to bump into walls like you're a bunch of bumper cars, completely throwing you off course and sometimes making you lose your rank. I mean, it's funny to look at, but it's not fun to experience. So yeah, this seriously bothered me whenever it happened. Apart from these issues, F-Zero, as a whole, is still a pretty alright racing game. It's one of the most unique games of its genre for its time, and it helped set a new standard for racing games in the future. I know I only played on beginner, but the alternate difficulties can really add a lot of replay value for such a short game. You even unlock a 4th and more harder difficulty after you win every other one. That's pretty neat. So yeah, I'd recommend F-Zero as a good starting point for the series. It's got some solid racetracks, fun gameplay, and a great soundtrack. You can still get the game on the Wii U eShop, if anyone still cares. It was also made available for the SNES online subscription thingy for the Switch, which also makes this the only F-Zero game available for the console, and it's behind a paywall. Huh. While the content in F-Zero was sorta lacking, seeing how short it could be, if you lived in Japan from 1996 to 1997 and had a little device for your Super Famicom called the Satellaview, tuning in during December 1996, January 1997, and August 1997 greeted you to the new BS F-Zero Grand Prix. These were cool little events that were broadcasted via satellite and offered new racetracks and even 4 new racers to check out. The first Grand Prix lasted around 4 weeks from December 96 to January 97, and the second Grand Prix happened later that year in August from the 10th to the 24th. These are pretty unique events that sadly never came over to America and have also never been re-released in any form to this day. Thankfully, F-Zero fans have saved the ROMs for all these events, and they're available online and can be easily emulated. I recommend checking them out if you're into emulation and like the first F-Zero game, but just wanted a little more action. While these events happened so late in the Super Famicom's lifespan, they weren't completely considered sequels to the original game, but more like expansions of it. A sequel for F-Zero was never released on the Super Nintendo. The system only ever had the first game, and the series never saw a true sequel be made. That was until 1998. A whole 8 years after the release of the original F-Zero, we finally got a follow-up, F-Zero X for the Nintendo 64. The first entry in the series to be in full 3D and to also play in a solid 60 frames a second. F-Zero X was by far the most impressive game in the series for its time. The game was packed with way more original content. We've got 3 cups at the start and 2 that can be unlocked, all of which have 6 racetracks each. That's 30 freaking racetracks, double the amount that was in the first game. Not only that, we go from 4 racers to 30. 30 unlockable racers. Holy shit. And some of them are women. We have female racers now. Oh snap. There's just so much extra content to unlock and it's just so great. I looked up a cheat code to unlock everything. I know, I have no integrity. But seriously, the amount of content packed in this game already makes it worth the purchase. And I haven't even talked about the gameplay yet. There's multiplayer. This game has multiplayer. Yes! But let's focus on the single player. Oh my god, this game is a blast. I fucking love F-Zero X. I mean it. The second I picked up this game, I just played it like crazy. It's so damn addicting and it's just so damn fun. It's F-fucking-Zero. The fast-paced action, the 60 FPS gameplay, it's so freaking good! You accelerate with A, you can make sharp turns using R and Z. Oh yeah, this was the N64. Huh. Gonna be honest, I never saw the hate for the N64 controller. I'm probably extremely biased since I grew up with the thing, but I never had any issues with this controller. Sure, it's weird looking and the analog stick wears off pretty badly, but I honestly don't mind it. I am sure that if I owned this game on an actual N64 that I'd adapt to it as well as I did using a classic controller for the Virtual Console. Hell, it might even play better with an N64 controller. Yeah, I said it. One new and awesome move you can do is a spin attack. You can spin into enemies and sometimes kill them by knocking them off the track or just blowing them up. It's great. I'm terrible at it, but it's still fun, damn it. You can also just double tap the R and Z buttons to slam into other racers. Fuck yes! You even get a star for killing people! Manslaughter in this game is amazing! One unique change for this game is how you can boost. You unlock the boost after completing one lap, just like in the first game, but now the boost can be used at any time. This sounds broken, but the boost actually uses up your energy bar, so you can't just spam it to win easily. You gotta spread out whenever you can use the boost, and I love that. It helps add an extra layer of involvement when playing the game. I fucking love this game! I love all the racetracks! Okay, some kinda stink like Rainbow Road, and the only time I ever got a game over in this game was during the Joker Cup, but everything else is dope. I love the racetracks with the half pipes, round pipes, and full pipes. God, this looks so cool! What the hell, this level looks like a hand! So, I've kind of been gushing about this game for a bit. I can't help it, there's just so much to love about this game. Is it perfect? Almost. Kind of. The 60 FPS is amazing to see the N64 pull off. But this came at a cost of graphical detail. A lot of critics complained about this, and I can understand why, but I can also understand why Nintendo did this. Without the 60 FPS, this really wouldn't be an invigorating or fast-paced experience as they really wanted it to be. I think they made the right choice in the end. Plus, I love seeing the low poly models, they're fun. Another flaw. Oh, the races can be kinda short? It sorta shows how much faster paced this game is compared to the first game. Some tracks can last about a minute long at points, which I love, but can also see it doesn't give enough time for the tracks to sink in. But I honestly love that. You know what else I love about this game? I'm sure you'll be surprised. The races last 3 laps, not 5, 3. This is the standard the first game lacked, and I'm glad that this game included it. I guess another flaw is, to my knowledge, you can't perform an early start for any of the races. I know every racing game made this a standard, but seeing how much faster paced the game already is, I don't think that was all too important. There's also, oh, the difficulty? The game can be pretty difficult for new players, even on Novice mode, which yes, I played on for every race. Don't judge me! I still had fun and I love this game! Now fuck this, let's go back to praising the game. You can balance your acceleration and speed before a race. I don't know how it works, but it's really neat. You can also change the color of your machine too. Yay! We have a retry option in the pause menu now. That's great! I love how when you die, it says you retire. I don't know what that means, but I love it. There's also voice clips. Really brief and albeit repeating voice clips, but they're still super cool.
3, 2, 1. You got post power! Finish! Alright! First place!
You can also look behind you by pressing C up, which on the Virtual Console version is a little more awkward to pull off since the C buttons were mapped to the second analog stick, but still cool. There are also other modes. There's Deathmatch, which speaks for itself. I couldn't beat it, but it's still fun as fuck. There's also Time Attack and Practice, the standard stuff. God, I love this game so much. What else is there to mention? The soundtrack! Oh my god, the soundtrack is so perfect! It's so good! With this fast-paced action going on, there was one genre so obviously to go along with this. Heavy metal. Aw yeah. I love the soundtrack to F-Zero X so much. The guitar riffs are so excellent, and the remixed tunes from the SNES games sound so incredible. It's so dang good. It even got an official soundtrack CD, which isn't available digitally because Nintendo hates fun. Oh well, I'll just go on eBay or something and find it for a decent price. Jesus fucking Christ! Yeah, this is kind of the holy grail of F-Zero soundtrack CDs. Damn it, Nintendo, just put this on iTunes, Amazon MP3, Spotify. You have no excuse. Use these services. Use them better. So yeah, the game had an official soundtrack release that you can find online pretty easily since fans ripped the tracks and put them up years ago. However, there was another soundtrack album for this game. It was called the F-Zero X Guitar Arrange Edition Soundtrack CD. This one's also difficult to find a copy for it, but it was ripped and put online, thankfully. I'm gonna say this now. This short soundtrack album is the pinnacle of F-Zero music. It sounds amazing. I highly recommend checking out this album if you haven't already. It's so good. It's so good. Why, Nintendo? Why isn't this available for purchase online? Why? Okay, I've been going on and on about F-Zero X, so I should probably move on. I'll wrap it up by saying it's an insanely addictive game to play, it's got great gameplay, a freaking awesome soundtrack, great replay value, and just overall, it's a rock solid entry in the series. It's basic F-Zero action, and I highly recommend picking this game up on any platform you can. Whether it's on the original N64 or the Wii U Z Shop, I don't care. Just play it. You got that shit on the OG Wii Shop channel? Good. Keep that shit downloaded and keep having fun. Check it out. Even though X was a great game, it only sold about 1 million copies. Pretty good numbers, but not good enough for Nintendo at the time, especially when the N64 was already underperforming as is. There was one thing that helped out the system for a while, and the F-Zero series in a way, which was... Hell yeah, the OG Smash Brothers. This is my childhood right here. It was so awesome to play this game consisting of multiple Nintendo characters, and one of them was Captain Falcon. Just like myself, this game was the first time lots of people heard of Captain Falcon, and his movesets were pretty neat, and not to mention the oh-so-iconic Falcon, which was the best in the N64 game because it's also the fastest he ever does the move. Fact. It was also great seeing Captain Falcon get some representation in this game. Apart from this, F-Zero X was the only N64 F-Zero game to be made, kinda like the original game on the SNES. However, also kinda like the SNES original, X did receive an expansion of sorts. In December 1999, Nintendo released an attachment for the N64 called the 64 disk drive, but only in Japan. There were plans to bring the system over to the States, but the 64DD did so poorly in Japan that plans for localizing the attachment were scrapped. The 64DD's lifespan lasted about 14 months, which is pretty bad. But hey, at least it's more than what the Virtual Boy got in America. During the 64DD's life, an expansion for F-Zero X was released in April 2000. This expansion was pretty damn neat. It gave players the option to customize their own machines for racing and even their own racetracks. It was really cool. You can even customize your own cups and also offer 12 new racetracks along with new music tracks. One of them being a Rainbow Road remix, which sounds great. Look it up. All in all, the expansion pack for F-Zero X is pretty awesome. It's kind of a shame that it never got brought over to America. I would have been all over this shit if I had it. To my knowledge, I'm pretty sure you could emulate the expansion pack using Project 64 or some other emulator, so at least we do have a way of playing it here in some way. Mark my words though, at some point in my life, I am so gonna play this thing on an official 64DD. I will die happy when that finally happens. After the F-Zero X expansion pack was pretty much a dud in terms of sales, another F-Zero game would see a release less than a year later in March 2001. This time it was made for the Game Boy Advance. In fact, this was a launch title for the Game Boy Advance, taking notes from the first game it seems. F-Zero Maximum Velocity, a game that takes heavy inspiration from the SNES original. It almost plays like a direct successor to the game. Just graphically, it looks identical to the SNES game, which was impressive at the time for a handheld game. This is pretty much a decent portable F-Zero game. Oh hey look, it's using the old Spider-Man font. One thing I like is how we have multiple controller types, so you could make it control more like the SNES game if you wanted it to. All seems good so far, however in comparison to the SNES game, this game is kinda lacking. The gameplay is the same, though I don't think the racing physics are too solid. It's not really bad, but it just feels different. I'm not too big on how the machines control. Hard turns just don't feel too great, and I almost find myself bumping into walls every time I try to make turns. I often find myself tapping the A button over and over again to somewhat make sharp turns better. Hell, even in the demo the game recommends doing that. Not terrible, but just really not my thing. This feels like a bit of a setback in some ways. You can't really do a spin attack or a side hit like an X. You just rely on your speed and boosting to beat races. The boost is set back to being just 3 boosts after you get past a lap. Plus, we're back to using 5 laps. Great. Not a terrible thing, but I just wish there was an option to switch back to 3 laps instead. One detail in this game that I really don't like is how whenever you're low on energy, your machine starts to move really slowly. It's just obnoxious, and it can take a while for you to get to a healing pad, which causes you to be left behind in a race. One thing from the SNES game that they brought back that seriously irritates me is that the ranks decrease with each lap, meaning you have to once again place at least 3rd, or you automatically lose the race. I have no idea why they brought this back. It's so annoying and not fun at all. Hey, there's a track in this game called Icarus Circuit. Is that supposed to be a reference? Alrighticus. I hate the ice physics in this game. It's too damn slippery and it's hard to understand how they work. God, I lost so many races because of these damn ice tracks. Ugh. The music is alright. Instead of doing remixes of older tracks, this game goes for more originality, so we have newer tracks and newer level music. The music sounds, again, alright, but there's nothing too memorable. The instrumentation also sounds kinda meh, but this was a launch title, so I guess at the time they were still trying to figure out the GBA's hardware. The game was developed by IndieCube, a subsidiary of Nintendo, and this was their first ever game they developed. They would later go on to make Wii Play, every Mario Party After 8, and an Animal Crossing game that everyone hates, and an okay Animal Crossing mobile game. This would also be the last F-Zero game to be developed in-house at Nintendo. They did an alright job with this one, especially seeing how this was their first game. They definitely captured the look and feel of F-Zero, I'll give them that. Aside from this, I'm not too big on this game, being honest. The racing physics aren't my thing and that can sort of affect the gameplay for me. I enjoy the racetracks and I think the music is alright, but there's not too much here that really encapsulated me. I will say, if I grew up playing this game, I most definitely would be way more attached to it. Hell, I probably would have beaten every track on expert mode since younger me was a freaking pro at gaming. But now I played on Novice mode because I'm rookie trash. There's 3 cups at the start with 5 tracks each, and there's one final cup you can unlock by beating everything on expert, which I can't do. I'm sorry, I'm not strong enough. I'm also not a fan about how the blue Falcon isn't available in this game. That's the main machine I use in F-Zero after all. Actually, this is one of the only F-Zero games to not have Captain Falcon be playable, which is interesting. Instead, we have the Falcon Mark II controlled by Kent Akechi, who, quote, claims to be the son of Captain Falcon. Huh. There's also a multiplayer mode, which at the time must have been cool as hell, but now I can't really show off using the Wii U's port. Whoops. Yeah, this game's on the Wii U eShop if you want to get it there. I'm just gonna keep hammering that home as much as I can. So yeah, F-Zero Maximum Velocity. I'm not too big on it, but it is a solid game in the series. I definitely recommend it if you're trying to find F-Zero games to play, and trust me, there is not a whole lot of them. Well, several months after the release of Max Velocity, we got to see Captain Falcon in yet another game, which was...
Super Smash Brothers!
Melee! I love Melee. I didn't grow up with it, but I still love it. I love the art style and fast-paced fighting, and of course, it's great to see Falcon return. And he was so good in this game that they put in 2 Captain Falcons in Melee, Captain Falcon and Ganondorf. That's interesting. Super Smash Bros. Melee is a great game and had some great representation for Captain Falcon, especially considering there were a few racetracks from F-Zero put in Melee. We didn't get a chance to see that in the first game. This was also the first time we got to see what these levels looked like on the GameCube, so it clearly showed that there was potential to have a new F-Zero game on the system. Well, it took another 2 years for that to happen. However, Nintendo would not be the ones to develop it. Instead, it was Sega. Yes, Sega took the helm for an F-Zero game, which made this the first ever collaboration between Nintendo and Sega. Amusement Entertainment were put in charge of making the new game. They were very well known for their few arcade games, not to mention Daytona USA, along with making the first 2 Super Monkey Ball games. So they were a pretty interesting choice to be the ones to make the next F-Zero game. Not only would we get a new game for the GameCube, but Sega decided to make a counterpart of the game for arcades too. Both of these games ended up seeing a release in late 2003. The games were F-Zero GX for the GameCube and F-Zero AX in the arcades. Let's focus on the GameCube version for now, since that's the only version I'm able to play. Let's play this bad boy. Well, first thing to note about this game is that it has widescreen capabilities. Not too many GameCube games used this mode before, and F-Zero GX used it insanely well. Shame that the system can only go up to 480p. Not only is this the first F-Zero game to be in widescreen, it's also the first game to include a story mode and cutscenes. There's a prologue and 9 chapters to play through, so I'll do a little summary of each chapter. Also, spoilers, I guess? It's not a long plot. The prologue consists of a cutscene showing Black Shadow, an antagonist in the series, who ends up getting wrecked by another character. This is Deathborn, who tells Black Shadow to win the next F-Zero Grand Prix, otherwise he'll kill him, pretty much.
You know the price of failure.
Yes, I can win it this time. I swear.
This leads us straight to Chapter 1. Jesus Christ, look at how buff they made Falcon. God damn, those biceps and ankles. Anyways, Captain Falcon returns to his bat cave of sorts and enters a practice mode. This is where you get to play the actual game for the first time. All you gotta do is collect batteries in under 80 seconds. It's a decent introductory level that helps you learn the controls pretty well. Chapter 2, Falcon bumps into another fan favorite character, Samurai Goro. Honestly, this is the one cutscene I remember the most from this game, mainly because of Samurai Goro. Look at how overly animated their character gestures are. What is it with Sega and always overdoing this shit?
You stole the prize money from us last time. You will pay for that. You know the law here in Red Canyon? If you lose the race, you forfeit your machine. You can't back down now. The mighty Falcon can't back down from a challenge now, can he? Let's do it. Alright then, the first one to that checkpoint over there is the winner. I can't lose in my fire stingray.
But, of course you'll lose. I've beaten you multiple times in multiple games. Of course you're gonna lose. I've beaten you 1,000,000 times.
Yeah, but weren't you playing on the beginner mode?
Shut the fuck up! Falcon wins, and shouldn't Goro surrender his machine now? Never mind, it blew up. Chapter 3, Falcon stops by a bar for a quick drink, until he's bothered by this old geezer, who begs Falcon to win a race for him.
We will shortly be closing registration for the next race.
The next race is going to start.
Hey, where do you think you're taking me? Wait!
Love the voice acting. So the old guy disguises Falcon and has him race. Aw, he signed him up as Famicom. Cute reference. Falcon wins and bails after Black Shadow gets spotted in the area. He even bails on his share. Falcon, what the fuck did we even win the race for? Chapter 4, Falcon is escaping, but he gets ambushed by a gang, which he has to hunt down and destroy each member. It's one of the most difficult things I've ever played. Screw this mission. Chapter 5, Save Jody. Yup, Falcon arrives to see the damage that Black Shadow has been causing, and stops by someone who begs him to go save Jody, which he does. I can't believe there's a hot woman in my machine now. For this mission, you gotta race time before everything explodes. The mission really demands you to be on your feet at all times. One slip up and you lose the mission. It's pretty frustrating. After saving Jody, Falcon sees Black Shadow flailing his arms in the distance.
Black Shadow.
Hell yeah, let's go after the person that we were initially running away from. Chapter 6, we encounter Black Shadow for the first time, face to face. Falcon tells Shadow that they'll settle their dispute in the Grand Prix, which I'm pretty sure they both knew they were going to do that. Kind of pointless to tell him that in person, especially considering he could be placing you in a trap by wrapping you up and forcing you back in your machine, while your evil clone puts a bomb on your machine rigged to blow up. I mean, I'm just saying. So for this mission, you gotta keep your speed up to 700 kilometers per hour, otherwise the bomb is gonna go off. So yeah, this is pretty much speed the mission. Not a bad idea, but holy fuck is this mission difficult. The turns are so damn sharp, and bumping in the corners automatically makes you slow down all the way, causing the bomb to start counting down. You can't stop the countdown, so you may as well pause and hit retry before you blow up. No checkpoints. You gotta do this entire mess of a track layout in one go. I have no idea how I managed to beat this the first time, and I definitely couldn't understand how I beat it the second time while recording. Either way, I'm glad to be done with this, so let's move on. Chapter 7, the Grand Prix. everyone is here, including Black Shadow, to compete in the ultimate F-Zero Grand Prix. As we all know, if Black Shadow loses, he'll be killed by Deathborn. So our goal here is to basically win and kill Black Shadow. So let me get this straight. Black Shadow is a terrorist who goes around killing innocent people and wreaking havoc on live TV, yet he's allowed to participate in F-Zero races, including the Grand Prix? It's like letting ISIS participate in NASCAR! This race is obscenely difficult. That appears to be a running theme with this game's story mode. The AI and track design is so bullshit. It's gonna take you a while to win this stupid race. Falcon wins the race and Black Shadow is banished to the Shadow Realm. He's dead.
Just who are you?
I am Deathborn, the Grand Prix champion of the underworld. Why don't you and I race each other tomorrow? Surely, as champion, you have to accept.
Yeah, I just killed this guy in front of hundreds of people. They want to race tomorrow? Chapter 8, the race tomorrow. Falcon arrives at Deathborn's lair, they fuse their victory belts together, and they have a race. And this race isn't easy. I know, surprising. Falcon wins and he's granted the victory belt as the Falcon chorus sings about how awesome he is.
The evil forces will never get their hands on this belt. I'll keep winning.
Hell yeah. Chapter 9. So Falcon is in his bat cave and... Wait, whoa. Falcon has a gun? We haven't seen him use that in Super Smash Bros. Sakurai, get on that. Anyways, he's in his lair and... this happens.
Falcon.
Look, I'm over here, Falcon.
Who are you?
We are the creators.
What are you talking about?
We'll take out your soul from your body and turn it into our creation. Are you ready?
Come off it. You think you can beat me? No way!
Jeez, you can have less of an ego about this, Falcon. So the final chapter consists of racing a staff ghost, and this is one of the most irritating missions in the game. The race itself seems fairly easy. It's the track design that makes it so frustrating. I fell off this track so many goddamn times that I literally gave up on this mission and just looked up the ending on YouTube. So here it is, Falcon wins the race and removes his helmet because, I mean, if you went through all the crap that he went through while wearing a helmet, wouldn't you want to take it off at the end? Also, I like how the eye parts of the helmet aren't glowing anymore, pretty much implying that Falcon's eyes are what makes them light up. He truly is the Batman of Nintendo characters. What a badass. The credits roll as the Falcon chorus sings on. Oh, look at that. Iwata was the last one to be credited. So that was F-Zero GX's plot. All in all, it's one of the most frustratingly hard campaigns I've ever played in a video game. When I started taking notes for F-Zero GX, one of the first things I wrote down was, really difficult. That was a pretty common criticism the game got when it was released. So I would say this isn't the best game to start out on if you've never played an F-Zero game. At the very least, there's no lives in story mode, so you can retry a mission over and over again as many times as you'd like. While the missions were pretty hard, the cutscenes are so entertaining and are a great reward for finishing a mission. The plot is just complete cheese, along with the voice acting. It just has that early 2000s charm to it. I really recommend looking up the cutscenes for this game since they're so enjoyable. If you want, you can enable subtitles by pressing the Z button when the cutscene starts. So there's that. Though one thing to note about these cutscenes is that when played on a good HD TV, you can really see the compression in these FMVs. It's not too horribly distracting and you can't really see it on the Elgato recordings, but it is something to note if you're going to play this game on a fancy setup. And if you're going to play through the whole story, take notice that you should go to this game's in-game store to buy more chapters. I like this. You pretty much can unlock them by earning tickets to purchase stuff in the game. It's pretty cool. The story mode can also be relatively short. It's about an hour long, maybe even shorter for those who are pros at this game. All in all, decent story mode, but it's insanely hard to beat. Let's move on to, I guess, the gameplay. And, oh my god, they did it. They actually did it. They nailed the gameplay for F-Zero. Who'd have think that Sega would be the ones to perfect F-Zero gameplay? I'm being serious, the controls in this game are perfection. The turning, the boosting, the sharp turning, the drifting. It's so wonderful and perfect. The GameCube controller. Oh my lord, I love this thing. It is practically magical at playing F-Zero GX. The controls and button layout are so wonderfully perfect. You have the ability to customize the controls in the options, but I honestly recommend sticking with the default controls. It just feels so right, and the analog triggers for sharp turns feel oh so good. Strangely enough, the C-stick isn't used for gameplay, which is odd. If there's one complaint I had, it's that you can't look behind you like you could in F-Zero X. Then again, this game is a whole lot faster paced than that game, so it was probably best not to include a look back option to interrupt the flow of the racing. You think the GameCube controller was good? Well, check out the Logitech Speed Force trademark. Yes, this existed, and it's compatible with GX, which is insane. So if you want to have arcade-like controls for this home console game, track down this peripheral and enjoy. Grand Prix mode is where I think the game truly shines. It's so damn fun. Yes, I still played on Novice, but whatever, okay? I'm trash at this game. Make fun of me all you want. If they had the option in the game, then they clearly put it here for inexperienced and or average players to pick it. Alright? There are 3 cups from the start, and 2 that are unlockable. The Diamond Cup and the AX Cup, consisting of racetracks from the arcade version of this game. I'll talk about that briefly. F-Zero AX was an arcade counterpart of GX that was released later in 2003, along with having exclusive content that you could actually access in the console version of the game by bringing your memory card to the arcade and loading it into AX to download some exclusive machine parts and tracks that sound so damn cool. But sadly, the arcade cabinet for AX is incredibly rare to come across nowadays, so having access to AX's exclusive content is a whole lot more difficult to get. Unless you're in Japan, that shit's everywhere, which does not surprise me. God, I wish arcades weren't dead in the States. Now, you can still unlock all the machine parts and racetracks from AX in GX by beating the game on harder difficulties, mainly the Master difficulty. There is a guy on eBay selling GameCube memory cards with all the AX content unlocked for like $40. So I guess you can buy them from there if you want to spend money on it to cheat. Or you could spend way less money to cheat through everything in the game, like I did. I have no integrity. Why spend $40 to get everything when you could spend $20 to $30? Action replay is pretty useful, mainly for me because I wanted to show off everything in this game for this video. There's a code for unlocking all 41 racers, there's a code for having all the enemies die after one hit, which I abused in both Grand Prix and story mode. You can also, quote, unlock all cutscenes in story mode, except not really. It doesn't work too well. Then there's the main cheat I used to unlock everything, pretty much, instantly finishing first in every race. This was hilarious to use, and it really helped with unlocking all the racetracks and stuff. I know I might get several dislikes for doing this, but I'm trash at hard games, okay? And I really wanted to show off everything in this game as best as I could have, because, honestly, this is one of those games that's really worth mastering and unlocking everything. Look, do not cheat the game like I did, because unlocking stuff in this game feels super gratifying. It feels great to master this type of game, and getting a large amount of rewards for it is really great. The game is just so intense and fun to play. Almost every single track is incredible. They have Sand Ocean again! Hooray for SA2! Graphically, this game looks phenomenal. Character models look very GameCube, but environments and scenery still look incredible today. It's almost next gen. I love the modern look of Mute City, I love the oceans in Big Blue, the forests in Greenplant look so lived in, and just the general look of Port Town is fantastic. The atmosphere in this game is pulled off so well. I love the casino level with the wacky music and shit. It's so memorable and fun. I also adore the attention to detail to the machines. Just look at the scratched up paint on the blue Falcon. You could even see it on the cover of the game. That's amazing. The soundtrack is great. I still kinda prefer X's soundtrack, but GX's music does a fantastic job at building up the atmosphere, not to mention being some head-bopping tunes. I remember a lot of these tracks being used in a few My Life in Gaming videos, and I can see why they used them. They're great background noise for videos. I'm using them right now even. Doesn't it work so well? The vocal tracks are also incredibly cheesy, but that's honestly why I love them so much. They fit the theme of the game, and a lot of the vocal songs I just flat out consider good, like Captain Falcon's theme for example. There was an official soundtrack release consisting of music from GX and AX. Disc 1 was for the character themes and the second disc was for the rest of the soundtrack. Not everything's here though. I can't seem to find the Falcon chorus from the end credits of story mode here. But there are still a good amount of songs worth getting the soundtrack for. It's a lot cheaper online compared to previous soundtrack releases, but still not as easy to get a hold of. Seriously, this soundtrack especially needs to see a digital release of some kind. Come on, Nintendo. I like that we still get to change the color of our machines when selecting them, though I'm kind of bothered by how we don't have a pink Falcon anymore. Now it's just a boring red Falcon. Like, wow, Sega, 0 out of 10, so disappointed. Back to the gameplay, like I said, the Grand Prix mode is a lot of fun to play through. I enjoy most of the tracks in this game, but if I have to be honest, I think the Diamond Cup has my least favorite tracks in the game. I don't have as much fun playing with these tracks, especially in Trident. This is my least favorite track. I just get such a nerve-wracking feeling when racing in this track. I really don't enjoy this one too much. I also don't like the last racetrack of the Cup, Phantom Road, mainly since it reminds me of the last mission in story mode. It's just as annoyingly designed and I hate it. I placed 16th in this race and I have no shame. Screw this track. Thankfully the AX Cup, which is the last cup you can unlock, is a lot of fun. I just love the inclusion of the arcade exclusive levels. They're really cool, and a good way to end the Grand Prix mode. Such a fun bonus. Another reason why I love this game is that it brought back the 3 laps per race, and it's perfect. So perfect. You also have 5 extra lives, but that's kind of a given. Lose all 5, you go into retirement. Thank God, I needed a vacation. You also get these fun character interviews for winning each Grand Prix Cup. I love the cheesy voice acting in this game, so this is just another nice bonus. Just look at Captain Falcon's clipping shoulder blade. Other options in the game are time attack and practice mode, which both speak for themselves. You can also create replays of races and time attacks, so you can go mess around with this if you want to. It also wouldn't be a modern F-Zero game without multiplayer, which is in versus battle. I couldn't really show it off because I have no friends, but this mode is definitely a lot of fun if you have people to play with you, so ignore me. One really cool feature in this game is the ability to customize your own machine and use them for racing and even time attack. You can do this in the garage. You can also create emblems for your machine in the emblem editor. I made a C that I put on my machine. Guess what the C stands for? No, really. So here's my machine. We can't name them ourselves, so the game just called it the Valiant Lancer. Cool name, but if I had the option I so would have called this thing the Pussy Wagon. Making your own machine that you can use in-game is one of the coolest features to be added to an F-Zero game. It's a lot of fun, and I'm sure you can spend several hours in just the garage alone making 4 different machines. Though one thing I kinda wish they could have brought back, though I'm sure it would have been kind of impossible with the GameCube, was the track editor. I think that would have been a neat inclusion, but then again, this was the GameCube hardware, so programming something like that probably would have been way more difficult. Oh well, the garage is still super cool. There's also pilot profiles where you can look at descriptions of racers and even get closer looks at their machines, along with getting unlockable movies to watch. Neat. So that's pretty much everything F-Zero GX has to offer, and honestly, how could I not recommend this to people who've played the previous games?
GX is debatably the best entry in the series.
It's definitely the crowning achievement of the franchise. Sega did an amazing job. I recommend it, but I would say do not make this your first F-Zero game. I'd say play the original and/or F-Zero X first, and if it interests you, then try to give F-Zero GX a shot. It's one of the most polished video games I have ever played. It's practically flawless, despite the difficulty curve. I'd say go out and buy it, but you can't. A lot of you may already know about this, but several first-party GameCube games are insanely expensive and sometimes rare to come across. My copy ended up costing me between $45 to $64, so best of luck if you want to get this game online. I'm pretty happy with my copy. The previous owner took really good care of it, and it still plays and feels like new. It even came with all the old inserts. Check it out. If I subscribe today, then I receive a free F-Zero GX Player's Guide. Awesome! Oh wait, it's Nintendo Power. Now this is depressing. This may already be common to hear, but GX really deserves a port on future consoles. Whether it's a direct port of the GameCube ROM or an HD remaster, it really deserves to be easily accessible on current Nintendo systems. The game's already in widescreen, all you'd really have to do is upscale the graphics and FMVs, and you're good. It'd be easy. Come on, Nintendo. If you're not gonna make another console F-Zero game, then at least port the good ones. Why not? Here's an interesting fun fact. This game was made on the same gameplay engine as Super Monkey Ball apparently. I can kinda see it, mainly whenever you go on bumps and stuff. Apparently this was done because when Amusement Vision was put in charge of the game, Nintendo gave them a very limited budget and a short time frame to get the game out, so they didn't have a whole lot of resources to work with. With that in mind, they did an amazing job constructing such an incredibly polished video game, along with having to create an arcade version all at the same time. It's impressive, maybe a little too impressive. A theory I heard from a friend who heard it from another friend is that the reason we probably haven't got another home console F-Zero game is because Nintendo has no clue how to top GX. It came out so well that Nintendo ended up calling the producer of the game and demanded to see the source code for GX because they wanted to understand and see how they made such a perfect video game with the limitations they were put under. It was that good. I mean, I don't know if that theory's true or not, but if it is, then it really explains a lot. The game reportedly sold over 1.5 million copies, which is a good number, but not really all too impressive for Nintendo. What's also pretty heartbreaking is that the Nintendo GameCube just wasn't the most successful game console. It was the worst selling Nintendo console for 11 years until the Wii U was released. This also meant that several GameCube games, while selling a decent amount of copies, didn't sell extremely well, or at least not as well as Nintendo wanted them to. Yes, this includes Melee. This explains why most first-party games for the system go for pretty high prices nowadays, which is really irritating. Why did I have to spend $50 for Mario Kart Double Dash, a game that came out 16 years ago, and is also the second best-selling GameCube game? So F-Zero GX sold a good amount, but it just wasn't the huge success that Nintendo wanted. But it was also too good on its own, so it ended up being the last home console F-Zero game. And it's been that way for, 16 years. Guess I should finally move on from GX and look at the last two F-Zero games in the franchise, both developed by a company called Suzak Incorporated. The first game was F-Zero GP Legend in late 2003 in Japan, and mid-2004 for America and Europe. Interestingly enough, this game was based off an anime of the same name which ran from 2003 to 2004. I never watched it, and probably never will. I hear the show wasn't very well received, so I'm not really in a rush to binge it. Though one scene I will talk about is the most iconic scene in the series, which apparently happened in the last episode. To summarize, it's incredible. I have no idea what's going on, but I'm sure this makes sense in context. Holy shit!
Captain Falcon!
He died for our sins. Anyways, let's talk about the game. F-Zero GP Legend, the last F-Zero game to be released outside of Japan. First things first, this game has a story mode. There's multiple different campaigns to play through. The stories in them are amusing, but nothing too special. There's lots of dialogue included, presented in these slideshow cutscenes. There's also lots of F-Zero lore included that probably relates to the anime. Like Samurai Goro has a wife? What? Just like in GX, you're doing a ton of missions in story mode, and these can range from being amusing to frustratingly annoying. Well, I'll describe the gameplay first. The controls are actually way better here than in the last handheld F-Zero game. Drifting feels a whole lot better, and the side attack was brought back. Yay! The physics just feel overall much better. Though one thing that took a while to adjust to is landing when jumping off ramps. If you don't land properly, you'll take damage. Yeah, so you have to hold down to land safely. So there's that heads up. I love how the power bar has a dynamic look to it now. Neat. You end up playing as multiple characters in their own stories, and a lot of them end up crossing paths, making you have to do the same missions over and over again, but from another character's viewpoint. This is a neat idea, albeit kind of repetitive. A lot of the missions consist of just winning races and/or reaching a certain part of the map before another character can. You win a mission, you get some moolah, then you move on. Like I said, a lot of the missions are pretty simple, but some of them can be really irritating. The most obnoxious one I encountered was the race against Blood Falcon. First off, he tells Captain Falcon long time no see, and the Sonic fan inside me is losing his shit. Not only that, this race is bullshit. Fuck Blood Falcon's AI. It's so irritating. It took me a zillion times to try and beat this motherfucker. God, what an asshole. Afterwards, Captain Falcon says that wasted time. Yeah, you could say that again. Also, here's a tip. For the races against other characters, you don't have to place first. You just have to beat the other character you're going up against. I like this, it makes the racing missions way less difficult. You unlock characters as the story mode goes on. I managed to beat most of them, but the last two, Black Shadow and Zelda, are bullshit and I can't finish their stories. Black Shadow's missions are too hard, and Zelda's machine controls like ass. Oh well. There's 4 to 5 levels per story, some challenging missions, though not as brutal as GX's story mode. Kinda wish we could look at what objective we're doing in the pause menu or something. You can't easily check it, which was a weird oversight. Apart from that, it's a solid mode, and being honest, it's actually the main part of the game I recommend checking out. The Grand Prix is still good and all, but the story mode is very clearly the main focus for this game. Still, you can have a good amount of fun in the Grand Prix mode. There's 5 tracks per cup, 3 cups at the start and 3 expert cups that I'll never beat, and 1 cup that I'll never be able to unlock, the Platinum Cup. So be sure to play through Grand Prix mode and master it to unlock the Platinum Cup because Lord knows I can't do it. As mentioned earlier, the controls are solid and feel great while racing. You can also customize them, but I honestly stick with the SNES style controls. They brought back the 5 laps thing, which I'm not a fan of, but at least now we can finally see how many laps we have left in an OG F-Zero style game, so that's good. Look, Sand Ocean's back, yes! The soundtrack is pretty damn good. It's not original at all, but the remixes of the SNES and N64 games music on the GBA sound font actually don't sound too bad. I love the Port Town remix a lot, it sounds great. And that's really all I have to say about GP Legend. It's an alright game, but I wouldn't call it as fun as the previous entries in the series, though it is a lot better than Max Velocity for its controls alone. The story mode is worth playing, so check out the game for that. Grand Prix is fun, also this game has multiplayer if you own the game on an actual GBA. I don't, so I can't really show this mode off. This game is also available on the Wii U eShop. Please care. So pick it up there if you're able to. So we finally made it to the last F-Zero game in the series, F-Zero Climax. I would review it, but unfortunately it was only ever released in Japan. It never got brought over to the States. Pretty odd. And sadly this means I have no real way to play it. Wait a minute, I just realized, the Game Boy Advance is region free. Not only that, but the GBA player for the GameCube is also region free. So I'll just go online and buy like a used copy from Japan, or maybe one that's imported. Like, this should be easy. Jesus fucking Christ. Yeah, we have a bit of a problem. F-Zero Climax didn't sell all that well, and with it also not being released in America or anywhere else, copies of it are extremely hard to find and go for large prices online. I know some of you may say, why not just emulate it? I would, but I'm personally not too big on emulation. I'm not against it, but I'm more against the idea of using them for recording stuff for reviews. Something just doesn't feel right not recording them off authentic hardware. So sorry guys, I'm gonna have to judge the game based off gameplay footage and old reviews of the game. From the looks of it, it looks to play almost identical to GP Legend, which makes sense, it's the same developers. Plus this was a direct sequel to the game. Apparently that was a complaint from critics at the time that they felt the game was way too similar to GP Legend, and felt more like an expansion pack more than a sequel. I can kind of see that. I like that the races have 3 laps instead of 5, that's good. There was also a story mode in this game too, though apparently it's not as involving as GP Legend's story mode, which is quite a shame. Not only did this game have a story mode, but it also had, get this, a track editor. Yeah, the very thing I've been asking for in these games that's only ever been available exclusively in Japan. God damn it. It doesn't look too bad either. Shame this game was never brought over here. Ugh. Overall, this looks to be a pretty average game in the series. The track editor is cool, but there's not much else here to really differentiate this from the last game. Even most of the soundtrack is the exact same. Let's be honest, the only real reason this game is so important to the series is because it was the last one. If we ended up getting more games after this, most fans would probably look back at it like, oh yeah, that game, it was alright. Instead, this is the last F-Zero game, and it's just average. What a damn shame. It is available on the Wii U's eShop, but only in Japan. Awesome. And that's the entire series really. F-Zero has not had a new entry in 15 years. It's been stuck in hiatus ever since. I'd end the retrospective here, but I figured I'd look at some of the later stuff that Captain Falcon and other F-Zero related things have popped up over time. Well, in Shadow the Hedgehog there are 2 boss fights called Black Bull, named after Black Shadow's machine, and the Blue Falcon, based off Captain Falcon's machine. This was neat. Wish the game was better though, but this was kinda cute considering Sega made GX and all. Of course, the next thing to mention is pretty obvious. Super Smash Bros. Brawl. This game is pretty divisive for most Smash fans, but I personally think it's pretty great. It's not amazing for the competitive scene, but for the amount of content featured in the game, it just makes me fall in love with it. Also, this game had the best soundtrack in the franchise. I think most of us can agree with that sentiment. Of course, Captain Falcon was made playable again. Of course he was. He's one of the OG 12 from 64. You can't just get rid of him. Brawl was also home to the Subspace Emissary, the adventure mode of the game. This mode was alright, but what really made it shine were the cutscenes. These are still amusing to watch. There's a lot of great fan service involved, especially for Falcon. His first cutscene has him Falcon punching a giant Rob. What a badass introduction. So yeah, reception on Brawl may be mixed, but I love it so goddamn much, and those subspace cutscenes will never be boring to me, ever. Glad to see Falcon be part of this great franchise permanently. The Wii itself did insanely well, selling over 5 times the amount the GameCube did. It was also quite infamous for missing out on several Nintendo franchises, most notably Star Fox and F-Zero. Despite the lack of an F-Zero game, the Blue Falcon would get its chance to make an appearance in one of the most famous racing franchises of all time. It was made playable in Mario Kart Wii for the baby characters. Yeah, Mario Kart Wii. Not too big on this one. I do have nostalgia for it, and I don't outright hate it, but every time I go back to play it, I just sort of glance over at Mario Kart 8 and think, yeah, I'd rather be playing a more superior game. It's cool to see the Blue Falcon in Mario Kart. I even remember unlocking it a decade ago and going, holy crap, this is Captain Falcon's car! And I mained it for a good while. But why was it only available for the baby characters? Is that supposed to be a metaphor for how F-Zero fans are crybabies for wanting another entry in the series after all these years? Thanks, Nintendo. So that was that. Nothing else really happened with F-Zero for like 4 years. Though there was a report that Nintendo apparently got in contact with Criterion Games to make a new F-Zero game for their upcoming system, the Wii U. Holy shit, this sounds amazing! Criterion made Burnout 3 Takedown, one of my favorite racing games of all time. Oh man, this could have been so awesome! Why didn't it happen? Because it never actually occurred. The former CEO of Criterion stated that they were never approached by Nintendo to make an F-Zero game, so it was all bullshit. Still though, if this actually happened, I would have shit myself. Also, I think if Criterion were actually approached by Nintendo to make an F-Zero game, why the hell would they say no? Then again, Criterion Games is currently owned by EA, which, yeah, that most likely would have caused some issues. Yeah, I'd rather not have loot boxes in my F-Zero game. Not to mention, the former CEO at the time said he doesn't even care about F-Zero, so it was probably for the better that this didn't happen. So that plan fell through. Then in 2012, Nintendo released the Wii U, and nobody cared. They most definitely tried to get the system to work. Most Wii U's were bundled with the game Nintendo Land, a game I ended up buying on clearance for like $20 about 5 years after the game came out. I mean, it's nice to own this game, I just never played it. Last time I played it was about a year ago and I barely put an hour into it. And when I booted it up for this video, I needed to have a 5-minute long update. Jesus. Why am I mentioning Nintendo Land? Well, it was home to a few attraction-like minigames based off various Nintendo IPs, including, you guessed it, F-Zero. Welcome to Captain Falcon's Twister Race. In this minigame, you have to hold the Wii U gamepad sideways and use it to steer yourself in the Blue Falcon to avoid obstacles and other things. It's alright. I mean, it's a minigame, so there's not really too much to it already, and I don't really see myself going back to play this ever. Again, it's okay, but this is definitely not what fans were asking for after an 8-year-long wait for another F-Zero game. So after Nintendo Land sorta came and went, something actually interesting happened. Captain Falcon appeared in Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS, and yeah, Captain Falcon is playable in these games. Not much else to really say here. I like playing as him. Yeah, I got nothing. Great seeing him back, but that's about it. So the Wii U had been on the market for a good 2 years now. It had been 10 years since F-Zero Climax, and F-Zero fans were begging for Nintendo to make a new game. I think it was around this time when Miyamoto was quoted saying a new F-Zero game couldn't happen because they couldn't think of any new ideas, which was why they kept outsourcing the games to third-party companies to make them. Still, the Wii U was lacking a racing game, and, well, obviously a new Mario Kart was going to be made for the system because that series sells. Yay. And we ended up getting a trailer for the next Mario Kart game titled Mario Kart 8. And upon getting the first trailer for the game, every single F-Zero fan looked at it and went, "Are you fucking kidding me, Nintendo?" Yeah, a lot of F-Zero fans were not happy to see the new Mario Kart incorporating this anti-gravity gimmick lifted straight from F-Zero. Regardless of that, I absolutely love Mario Kart 8. To this day, it's still my favorite Mario Kart. I love the driving physics, I love almost every racetrack, and that soundtrack, man, so good. To add more fuel to the fire, I guess, Nintendo released some DLC for Mario Kart 8, and this DLC included new racetracks in the form of Mute City and Big Blue. I understand the frustration this game causes F-Zero fans, but I think these two DLC levels are a lot of fun. They're also definitely the closest thing to a new F-Zero game we're probably gonna get. Oh yeah, the Blue Falcon was also brought back, and this time it can be used by everyone, not just the baby characters. Cool. So Mario Kart 8, fun game, would recommend. Definitely check out the F-Zero DLC tracks too. All of it is included with the Deluxe Edition on Switch, so be sure to pick it up there. I adore the F-Zero remixes too, and I'm glad they're on the official soundtrack CD, which was only exclusive to Japanese Club Nintendo members, god damn it! Later on, Captain Falcon would go on to appear in the latest installment in the Super Smash Bros. Series, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. And, yep, it most certainly is Captain Falcon in Smash Bros. Ultimate. Kinda like the previous Smash Bros. Entries. And that's about it. That's all the F-Zero related content I can discuss in this video. Needless to say, it's really starving for a new entry. A 15-year hiatus has never been unheard before, but the fact that it happened to a series with a lot of potential to have a ton more games, it's quite a shame. It's such an underrated racing franchise that surprisingly has a huge fanbase begging for a new installment. It may seem bleak now, but mark my words, we will get a new F-Zero game. I think the whole "we don't have any new ideas" excuse is kind of BS. You can come up with anything if you have enough imagination. Unless that GX theory from earlier is true, I think the series deserves a new entry really badly. 15 years since the last game, and 16 years since the last home console game, I think an F-Zero game would really thrive on the Switch. I have no idea when we'll get another game, but I'll always remain hopeful that we will get one, and also grateful for the games that we do have in the series. I liked the first game, I love X, Max Velocity was still decent, GX was phenomenally well made, and GP Legend is still fun. So while we probably won't have another game in the franchise for a little longer, I'll still have these games by my side to sit back and play. Yep, even being the novice beginner newbie I am. I love F-Zero. Thank you so much for sticking by me in this lengthy retrospective on one of the most beloved and underrated racing franchises of all time. I'm CooperCastille, and I'll see you guys in the next review. Thanks for watching.